Joining us now is Ana Kasparian. She is a host, and executive producer of the Young Turks. Ana, thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure, Michael.
So, Ana, we almost had a massive catastrophe yesterday with Iran. It didn't happen because Donald Trump is like Gandhi and was like, there's 150 people. I shouldn't be joking about this. What do you make of all of this?
This is such an incredible story because, first off, of course, Donald Trump is not Gandhi.
No.
But to his credit, and I never thought in a million years I would give him credit, he seems pretty devoted to his base, and his base does not want these wars. They do not want regime change wars. The American public in general does not want another war. And so he luckily isn't allowing the warmongers in his administration convince him or persuade him to launch any type of military attack against Iran. And even yesterday, after that drone was shot down, and I personally believe that that drone was in Iranian airspace.
Me too.
He really downplayed it, while at the same time, members of his administration were fear-mongering about it.
And the other thing that's kind of amazing, like yesterday, I had us play a clip of George W. Bush actually after the invasion of Iraq, still basically trying to kind of obscure but also like defend the lies that they were telling about the connections between Iraq and Al-Qaeda before the invasion of Iraq. That's incredible that they're bringing that out with Iran, especially just on a basic level. I mean, Saddam Hussein would not be close with Al-Qaeda because of their very profound differences just in terms of secularism versus like religious extremism. Iran is obviously Shia, and Iran is Shia, and Al-Qaeda is extreme Sunni. Like, what do you also make of the process of like watching all of these lies and all of this spin and all of this hype? Like, it's like getting debunked in real time in a way.
Yes, yes. So what I find fascinating is politics in America in general is just a completely different ballgame from what it was during the Bush administration. I mean, the Bush administration, of course, lied to the public, dragged us into this preemptive war. And part of the reason why they were able to do that is because Americans were scared. They bought into the fear-mongering. We were just attacked, of course, on 9/11. And that type of fear-mongering resonated with people. Now we've had, obviously over a decade, over 2 decades of this nonsense fear-mongering and these wars, and people are just smarter now. They're savvier. And you can play the same game for so long until people finally catch on to what the lies are all about. And it's incredible because while there's so much division in the country, the reality is there are some issues that do unite Americans regardless of political ideology. One is the issue that we talk about often, which is, economic injustice. But there's also this notion that, there is a military-industrial complex. These wars are pushed by entities that stand to profit from additional wars or perpetual war. And people are just smarter now. They're savvier now. We do have real-time debunking. And what's also different this time around is that our allies are not willing to play ball.
Right.
They're willing to come out and speak out against what the United States is lying about. We saw that with Japan after the oil tanker was attacked, and we're seeing it with some of our European partners as well.
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting. I mean, Macron is a lot like Tony Blair in many ways, which is a total insult, obviously, but he's not willing to Blair it to this level. Like, he's not willing to be Tony Blair for a war on Iran. Just briefly too, you mentioned that, part of the reason they would lie about the connection between Al-Qaeda and Iran first of all, I think you're right. It's just old school fear mongering, but then it's also that Pompeo was trying to set it that strikes on Iran would be covered under this AUMF, which is the one passed right after September 11th, which they're still using for global drone wars, all of this stuff. And Barbara Lee finally got a sort of, it will surely die in the Senate, but she actually has been working to end this, finally got it out of the House. That's some progress too.
Definitely. It's progress, but it should also be a lesson and a cautionary tale for members of Congress, because the reality is once you're willing to give up congressional power to the executive branch, and essentially go against our system of checks and balances, well, that power will be abused by the executive branch. And you also have to consider the unintended consequences in the future. So I'm glad that Congress is fighting back a little more. I mean, Matt Gaetz, of all people, is fighting back and trying to ensure that the Trump administration does not move forward unilaterally.
Yeah.
This is not something that we experienced during the Bush administration.
Right. Yeah, to say the least. But I think one thing that we did experience during the Bush administration that we're still experiencing is, the Adam Schiffs of the world, the, dumb Twitter pundits who think that the right response to Donald Trump not engaging in a catastrophe is to, basically call him like a wuss bag. What is that about? Like, how do those people still exist? The same people that are most freaked out about Trump might be the same people pushing the same propaganda about Iran and actually trying to instigate something like this.
Well, obviously everything is political. And sometimes I think members of Congress, Democratic members of Congress, in their effort to, quote unquote, resist Trump, will, make all sorts of stupid mistakes. And the fact of the matter is, there should be positive reinforcement when Trump does something right.
Yes.
So if Trump has decided to call off airstrikes against Iran, you don't go on Twitter and start egging him on. You should give him positive reinforcement. The last thing we need is another war. And so I think partisan politics in a lot of ways has kind of blinded some of these politicians like Schiff from doing the right thing. And I mean, I have no problem giving Trump positive reinforcement when he does the right thing. And I'm obviously a progressive. I don't want war with Iran. And I think the right thing to do is to applaud him and, continue trying to persuade him to avoid this war.
Without a doubt. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think, and it's also, the other thing I think about people like Schiff is still that so much of DC is still run on this, this axis of like the defense industry and then just this kind of like foundation that pretty much no matter how reactionary or dangerous what they're doing, may or may not be, but right now it really is, that Saudi Arabia and Israel are just like the axis of the Middle East. And what's funny about Trump is that on one hand, his relationship with Saudi Arabia and with Israel is totally craven. But I guess it's just his political instinct in this one area where, fair enough, he gets it on some level.
Definitely. And back in the day, starting a war in the middle of your administration would probably get you reelected. But in this day and age, especially if he's going to go against what his base wants, it could really hurt him politically. I think that's part of the reason why you have people like Tucker Carlson advising him behind the scenes and telling him, don't go through with this. This is a bad idea. Right. And don't listen to the warmongers in your administration.
Absolutely.